Hello book lovers, and welcome back or welcome to Nat Cat's Bookish Cafe. Today I will be going through 5 fantasy romance that I recently read and think you should check out as well. So fantasy romance is a subgenre of romance that is definitely pretty popular here on BookTube, and I have been getting a little bit more into it. It's one of those genres where it's either like a miss or it's a hit, but I have accumulated 5 books here that I have rated 4 or more stars and would like to recommend to you today. Before I get started, once you finish this video, let me know your fantasy romance recommendations down below, because I'm definitely looking for some more to check out. All right, so we're gonna start off with the one that I don't own physically, just so that I don't forget about it, and that is Rhapsodic by Laura Thalassis. Laura Thalassis, I think, is a pretty well-known author because of her Bargainer series, as well as her 4 Horsemen series. This series follows a young siren called Calypso, and she lives in the human world. When she is young, she kills her father or stepfather and calls upon the Bargainer to help her clean up this mess. Over the course of the next year, she calls on him hundreds of times to keep her company. Being a siren, it's very difficult for her to make friends because she is someone who can make humans do what she wants with the use of her voice. So people kind of try to avoid her. One day, however, the Bargainer disappears and she does not see him again for about 7 or 8 years. At the beginning of this book, the Bargainer returns and has come to collect. Calypso has hundreds of beads strung around her arm, which is how the Bargainer keeps track of her debt. Usually people only get 1 to 2 beads before he asks them for repayment, but he has kind of been just building them up with her, and now it's time for her to pay back a big chunk of that. There is something bad occurring in the Fae realm, and he has come to her for assistance. Women and men in the Fae army are being kidnapped. The men are disappearing completely, but the women are being returned in glass caskets carrying a vampiric child. This series, I've only read the first 2, so I haven't read the novella or the final book yet. However, what I have read of it, I have really enjoyed. I gave the first one, Rhapsodic, 4 stars. I really enjoyed the writing in the story. A lot of times with fantasy romance, what I struggle with is the balance of romance and plot. And I think that this book does a really excellent job of giving us enough plot and world building to get us really invested in the story, but also gives us enough romance to quench our thirst for good smut scenes and sweet scenes as well. The Bargainer is actually the Fae King of the Nightmare Kingdom, or the Night Realm of the Fae Kingdom. So he and Calypso are both creatures of darkness and sex and violence, and you can definitely see that within their relationship. It leads to a very sexy vibe between the 2 of them, and they are definitely drawn to each other, both in their more human forms and in their darker creature forms. Aside from the romance, I thought that the plot was really intriguing as well, both in the first book and the second book, and I'm definitely interested to see where it goes. While the plot isn't always the most unexpected and can at times be slightly predictable in its mystery aspect, this isn't some sort of mystery thriller book, so it's not what I'm expecting from it, so that's totally fine for me. But I do definitely think it's enough to keep the story moving along at a good pace. Overall, if you really enjoy fae stories or stories with strong female protagonists, as well as maybe a little bit of a mystery aspect to it, I would definitely suggest this one. Up next, I have a book from an author that most of you probably know. This is one of his older books. So if you haven't gotten around to his backlist yet, I suggest you do so now, starting with The Lightning Struck Heart by TJ Klune. And this book is gonna suck for my ring light, so I'm gonna kind of hold it like this. So this is the beginning of a series. You can kind of see the series here behind me. There are 4 books in the core series. There is also a collection of short stories, and then there is a 5th book that is set within this world and comes after the 4 core books, but actually follows a side character instead of the main characters that are followed within the core series. In this book, we are following Sam, and he is a wizard. He grew up in the slums, but after turning a group of bullies to stone temporarily, he is approached by the king's wizard to come live in the kingdom with his family and learn to be the king's next wizard, or the prince's next wizard. One day, a handsome knight arrives at the castle and Sam is instantly smitten with him. However, this knight and the prince start forming a relationship, so Sam keeps his distance. Luckily or unluckily, depending on who in the party you are, the prince gets kidnapped by a dragon, and Sam and this knight need to set out and save him. And the more time they spend together, the more Sam starts to wonder if the prince and the knight are just friends and that the knight may actually have feelings for him. So this story has TJ Klune's well-known humor. This book is definitely not for children. A lot of the humor is incredibly sexual. We have a group of characters that are Sam's friend, which is a hornless gay unicorn as well as a half giant, and the 2 of them are quite a pair. The 3 of them are always getting into a ton of shenanigans, but are somehow at the end of the day still saving the world. This first book focuses a lot on Sam and Ryan being the knight, and getting to know each other and admitting their feelings for each other. The series does expand from there, including dark wizards and dragon-related prophecies. So I do think that the first book is the strongest in the series, but overall I think the whole series is really great, and I really love Sam and Ryan's relationship. The humor in the story, while a little dirty, wasn't so dirty that I, a slight prude at times, didn't enjoy it. So I definitely suggest checking out this work if you're looking for a good time that'll leave you laughing. Also, if you enjoy found family aspects, TJ Klune always does a great job, and this series is no exception. Up next, we have probably my favorite book on this list, and one of my favorite books of all time, including one of my favorite couples of all time, and that is Radiance by Grace Draven. This is a trilogy. I have read all 3 of them. The first 2 books in the trilogy follow this couple, while the 3rd book follows a different couple. In this first book, we are following Ildiko, who is the niece of the king of one of the 2 human kingdoms that are represented in this world. The other human kingdom in this world is making advances to go to war with her kingdom because they are located on the port, and this other kingdom wants access to that port. So her uncle decides to do an arranged marriage with the Kai kingdom. The Kai are kind of these human-like but not quite magical creatures. They have gray skin, black eyes, sharp teeth, sharp claws, and they do have a bit of magic in them, though each and every generation that magic is being more and more depleted. The Kai are, of course, trying to keep that part a secret. When our 2 characters meet for the first time for their arranged marriage, they find each other repulsive. So humans and Kai are very disgusted by each other's appearance. However, personality wise, the two of these click right away. So they're more than happy to be married and to be friends. We follow Ildiko and Brishan, her husband, to the Kai Kingdom where they go to live. This book focuses a lot on their relationship, which goes from friends to lovers very gradually throughout this first book. I thought that the pacing of the relationship was very natural, and that their friendship, which was based in trust and excellent communication, was just such a wonderful experience. The two of them were very sweet together. They bantered a lot. There was a lot of humor between the two of them, and they were also very supportive of each other, as well as eventually, as they grew even closer, very protective of the one that they love. The second book in this series has a lot more plot going into it. So the second book I also gave 5 stars. I gave this 5 stars, by the way. And this book just very much sets up the world building a little bit, as well as kind of where our two characters stand in this world politically, and kind of then starts the plot for book 2. But overall, if you're looking for a really sweet friends to lovers romance, or want to dip your toes into monster romance, this is definitely the place to go. Moving on to book 4, we have Lord of Eternal Night by Ben Alderson. This is a Beauty and the Beast retelling featuring a witch who is sent to kill a vampire, but obviously that doesn't happen. So our character Jack is a witch, and witches have kind of lost their powers over the years, but he actually has quite a bit of magic. So they are sending him into this kind of protected area that's like magically protected, that houses a vampire, so that Jack can kill him. The vampire Marius has been cursed for quite a while and has just kind of been living on his own, and one day this witch shows up to kill him, and then the two of them eventually form a relationship and start to learn some secrets about the truth of the world and the witches, as well as just finding a way for the two of them to find a place in the world where they can be together. I ended up giving this book 4.5 stars. This was my first book from the author. I did read his other book, The King of Immortal Tithe, which is the book that comes after this. That one I didn't like as much, but in this one I really enjoyed the two characters and their relationship. I thought that the steamy scenes were really well done in this book. I like the setting of this kind of eerie house that has kind of monsters prowling around outside of it. And overall, I thought that the book had just the right amount of world building to keep me interested in the story. I think that this is the kind of a book that you want to read when you just kind of want to turn your brain off and experience some sexy chemistry between two characters that are supposed to kill themselves but end up tumbling into bed together instead. All right, and for the last book, we have A Lady of Rooks Manor by Catherine Moon. This is the first book in this series. I have also read the second one, and I do believe that I enjoyed this first one a bit more. I gave it a 4.5 stars. This is historically based, and it is a reverse harem monster romance. This, I believe, might be considered a bit more paranormal. Some of the books on this list, like Lord of Eternal Night, might be more paranormal than fantasy. However, we are following Esther, and she has been a maid at a house that is running out of funds. In need for a new job, she is offered a position at a house where she would act as a lover of men who are not quite human. During her time there, she eagerly takes on multiple lovers, including a Dr. Jekyll, Dr. Hyde character, a vampire, an invisible man, a golem, and a sphinx. So I think there's 5 of them in total. This is definitely one of those books that's more smut, less plot. So if you want plot in your book, this does have a little bit, but just enough to move the story along. It's definitely very sex forward. But one of the things that I really loved about this book and why I was okay with it being so long was because the author took a lot of time to develop Esther's relationship with each of the men individually, which I really loved. And then kind of watching them all come together as a found family and coming to love each other as a group was such a fun experience. I really enjoyed their protectiveness of Esther, but also Esther's protectiveness of her men. She was like, ain't nobody taking these men from me. Nope, they're mine through and through. And I just had such a great time with this story. I highly recommend it. It's definitely one that makes me think that I would really enjoy the trope of reverse harem. The smut in this book is chef's kiss. It is so good. You have so many unique men and so many unique things that they could do, and the author definitely took advantage of that. So if you haven't checked out this book yet, I know it's pretty well received. I definitely suggest you get on board. In fact, I feel like the 3rd book in this series is coming out in June, if I'm right or not, and I will definitely be trying to get to that as soon as possible. All right, guys, so those were the 5 books that I recently read that fall under the fantasy romance genre. I hope that you got some recommendations from this. I'll try to do another 5 when I've read another 5. I'm kind of taking this idea from Becca in the Books, who does this with her fantasy romances, so I just want to shout her out and definitely give credit where credit is due. It's a good way to get out some recommendation videos without doing like 20 books at one time, which can always be a little overwhelming. But all in all, as I mentioned in the beginning, please let me know any recommendations you have, especially if they're kind of in the same vein as these. As always, thank you so much for your support by watching my channel, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!